Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of R.E.A.D.Y, Real Estate and Divorce Plus You. Today, we have an amazing topic to talk about because when you're going through a divorce, you think you've picked the right team, you've picked some professionals, and things are going well. But what happens if things aren't going well? You're already in a tough situation, and you find out that maybe the people you picked to walk alongside you and help you out is not really working out.
So basically what you're saying is how to pick the professional you're working with, or how to get out of if it's not the right team for you to go through this process.
It's almost like another divorce while you're going through a divorce.
Divorce your professional.
Yeah, you're divorcing your professional. And who wants to do that? You're already going through a tough time. But, Jeff, you know what's at stake. If someone chooses an attorney that really either isn't working to the best of their ability or maybe a little lazy, there's a lot at stake there.
Yeah, but there are a lot of factors. I mean, we get calls all the time from people who are currently going through a divorce, already have an attorney, and are considering changing lawyers or adamant that they want to change. And sometimes after talking to them, it's just that they don't like the honest advice or the realistic advice that they're getting from their current attorney. Sometimes it's that they haven't paid their attorney's bill, even though, there's a lot of gray areas with that. And sometimes it's simply that their lawyer has probably taken too many cases for too little money and can't do the work. And a lot of times I'll ask somebody right away, bluntly, how much have you paid your lawyer? How much do you owe your lawyer? And if they tell me some ridiculously small number of what the retainer was, the first thing I'm thinking is that lawyer can't afford to do the work and to really be responsive, because they've probably, in order to cover their overhead, I mean, this is unfortunate, but this is the truth. In order to be able to cover their overhead, no matter how low it may be, they've probably taken hundreds or thousands or however many cases at that low price, and it's hard to provide quality service and be attentive and be responsive based on that. So there could be several issues, but it could also be a lawyer that you hired because a friend referred them, or you found them online, or you saw a billboard or TV ad or whatever it may be, and just decided to hire that person, and maybe they're not as experienced as you would like them to be. Maybe they're not communicating. Maybe their style is that they're just going to try to reach a resolution without really investigating or digging into the case. There could be any sort of issue, but to my point is, some of those people that have called me, I've talked to them and made them realize that maybe they should stay with their current attorney, or maybe we weren't the right fit for them, and maybe their current lawyer I thought wasn't either, and maybe somebody else may be. So it just depends, and everybody has a different personality and different style. And even with the associate attorneys in my office that would also handle divorce cases, we kind of team up based on our client's personality and our client's goals, and based on our associates' personality and skill level and connections and whatever it may be. We team up the right client with, I guess, the right professionals to work with them. And it's not always the same. It's not a one-size-fits-all.
You got to manage expectations.
Yeah.
And I really like...
That's tough to do sometimes.
That's true. But what I really like taking from what you said, Jeff, is a personality. Some personalities don't clash. So when you have a client, I know I've had
or they
individuals...
clash, right?
Do clash.
Or they don't click.
clash.
They don't click.
They don't click. So I've had individuals call me as well, saying, hey, I need a second opinion for my mortgage. Hey, I need this. And it's actually gone one way or another way. One way, I had actually a client that contacted me who was referred to me by their real estate agent and said, no, we don't think he's getting the best. So I sat down, I talked to the client, and I gave some pretty good questions like, okay, where are you at? Where are you going to be? What's your goal? And then everything I heard, that actual loan officer was doing a good job, really, truly was doing a good job. I'm like, but look at it from this perspective. And I know it's new to them, but with that said, it's like, hey, having another professional saying, know what, you're right, on the right track. Tell me what you like about that person. And I actually challenged them with that question. And that individual said, they worked with me for 1.5 years, but now I'm scared. And after hearing everything, I confirmed that loan officer was doing a really good job, and I sent that client back to that loan officer. Now, there's been times where someone's come to me, and I see a lot of flaws, and I can poke a lot of holes and go, know what? what if we look at it from this perspective, and it actually fit their goals much better than where they're at going in the mainstream. So when you actually get that phone call, it's not to just sell myself, it's actually to provide what the client wants.
Absolutely.
And listen to them and that personality, like, okay, does this work? And also having that honest conversation with them. I like that mother hen role. I do that very well in my job of going, okay, but what about this? Let me challenge you to think this way and ask those challenging questions. Yeah. So finding that personality that will work right off the get-go helps. But if someone comes to me for that second opinion, I listen to them, hear them, and then ask them some challenging questions, and they make their own decision. So, and I can imagine Holly choosing someone in your profession, it might be somewhat similar, but what do you think?
So today I was hoping that we would like each kind of go around and talk about, let's say you're at the beginning and you haven't even moved forward. So like for a realtor, you know, what kind of questions should you ask your real estate agent? So for me and what I do, there's a lot of factors, just like in everything that we do, there's a lot of factors. I like to know, you know, what is the plan so far? Are we keeping the house? Can we keep the house? Are we selling the house? Are you both moving? You know, what's your time frame? I need to know time frames more than anything. I like to speak with the attorney. I want to have a good relationship with the loan officer because we have to work as a team to make sure they're not homeless, you know, to make sure that we don't sell too quick and we don't know where we're going, or we don't know if we can buy. We've already talked about that in previous times. But so to me, a good real estate agent is not going to jump in, give them a contract and say, yes, I got this listing. I'm so excited. Mm-hmm. It's more of a fact finding. I need to know the details. What's our time frame? And then once I know the time frame, then I can look at, you know, where are you going? I want to make sure they have that set. And if I'm working with them on the buy side, you know, questions they should ask me would be, you know, like Jeff was mentioning, you know, if you see a billboard, you're automatically thinking, I'm going to work with that guy or that girl. Well, you're probably not. You know, you might be working with someone else. So there's those expectations of, you know, how many buyers do I have? And they should be asking, am I going to be working with you? What if I need to see a house and you can't show it to me? Well, I have a plan for that. Do I have showing agents? Yes. Do I have to open every door? No. So, but I have a plan, you know, to get you in.
Are they going to have your cell phone number?
Absolutely.
They're going to be able to contact you, text you, call you, anything.
Whenever they need to. I really don't have like hours. I know they say you should have work hours. I don't, because I realize, especially going through divorce, if I can't answer the phone, they understand that if it's unreasonable. Like you come at 11 o'clock, I'm sleeping. But I'll get back to you as soon as I can. In the morning or at night? Exactly. Don't tell on me. Listen, some nights are tough and some nights you work late.
But you know,
go ahead.
You know what's also tough is a lot of people bullshit a lot and they'll overpromise and then underdeliver. Mm-hmm. And it's easy when you're in a vulnerable position of going through a divorce to hear somebody make all these great promises and then not deliver. So where's the BS meter, or how do you know if it's somebody that is just all talk or is proven? And I feel like that's why, to your point, Cece, of being mother hen or giving people advice, whether even if it's not to steer them your way, I think that's what's going to create more respect and be able to deliver more referrals. More people can say, listen, she was honest. She even told me to stick with whoever I was working with, but maybe you should try her out. And I think that goes a really long way, as opposed to the people that are just going to tell you what you want to hear. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, listen, I've had clients not hire us in the past because we told them the truth and they don't want to hear the truth. And I know I've talked about on this show before where I've had people call and say they've already talked to 10 lawyers, but they didn't like what they had to say. I said, what'd they say? And it turned out that was the truth. And they didn't want that. They want somebody that's going to give them all the false promises and the glitz and whatever.
And you already know at that point. Well, yeah, but at that point, when you hear someone that has that wall up, that's waiting to hear what they want, that's going to go down a bad road,
of course,
in the future. And you just want to be authentic and real because, again, reputation. All of us at the table, we work on a reputation. We want to put forward who we are and keep that ongoing. So hopefully when that referral goes to a future client that will be going through the divorce procedures or just after, we'll get a good recommendation. But that BS meter, that's hard, especially when you're vulnerable, like what Holly said.
It's
Two things that we like inject there is like number one, listen to all you guys, is just the thought that it's so important to get a referral instead of just going on the billboard or going off the commercials. Because when I get a lead from you, or we get a lead from a referral source, there's an accountability that you have. So, and it's as opposed to just somebody coming in blindly off the phones or a cold call or something. There is accountability. Now, as a professional, I'm always trying to do the best, but there's a certain amount of vigilance that, have a client of yours, I'm not going to screw this up because,
And that's why I feel good about it. I know that we have that relationship. I know what I'm getting with you. When someone comes in with their own lender, of course, that's their choice, but there is a little bit of anticipation, like, is this going to go well? And I need to have that conversation because I'm used to our relationship. And so that's important to note, is that accountability piece is huge.
And part of this,
and that's why we network with each other. You network with other attorneys. I network with agents. We're all, because the more we know each other, we know we're working with a good agent. We know we're working with good lenders. You got a great attorney. It makes the process a little bit easier. It's not easy, but it makes it a little bit more manageable.
And I tell people all the time where they say, oh, I hope my spouse doesn't hire a lawyer. I hope my spouse doesn't hire somebody good. I go, actually, we hope they do hire somebody good and somebody that knows what they're doing. Because if they're just going to hire somebody that's either a jack of all trades or somebody that is not experienced or knowledgeable or somebody that may be one of those high volume lawyers, it actually it could create more complications. It could end up costing the client more money because of the delay, the additional time trying to explain things to the other side. But when you're dealing with somebody professional on the other side, things usually go a lot smoother.
They do.
And better.
it's just that perspective that they pay more money, they're going to get screwed over more, so to speak. So
Right. So Jeff, just putting you in the hot seat for a
Yeah,
second.
what's up?
If I'm a client and I'm coming in to sit down and talk to you, what questions should I be asking you? Like,
as a
what,
prospective client getting ready to hire somebody.
like I'm about to go through a divorce. I'm going to sit down and talk to you. I come in with a list of questions. What should I ask? And then what should I want to hear?
Hopefully the attorney that you're meeting with in the beginning is going to answer most of what your questions are before you even ask them. Because generally what we do is we go through the procedural part, but also the realistic part, and give the client realistic expectations. But we try to talk about everything. If you have kids, about how custody works, how parenting time works, regarding that assets and property. If there's a business, we talk about getting an expert involved to do evaluation. If we need a forensic accountant, but getting the right professionals involved. And if you ask a question and your lawyer says, I don't know, or let me get back to you, I would probably respect that lawyer more and value more, rather than if somebody's going to have an answer to every specific question you have. Now, in my point earlier of answering everything, they should be able to go through the process with you. But to answer specific questions, if they're answering specific questions or telling you possible outcomes, then I'd be nervous because every situation is different.
Right.
And while we can give you examples of things that could happen or could likely happen, nobody has the right answers, especially not in the beginning. And that's part of the reason why there's a minimum 6-month waiting period if you have kids, and 2 months now if you don't, because people change their mind. They don't know. And it's common. With the day you decide you're going to file for divorce, what you think in your head you want for parenting time or the house or the assets might be different than even a week later when things might have calmed down, or a few months from then, or even in 6 months when the reality, if it starts to sink in, you maybe start shopping around for a house or try to figure out how you're going to pay for certain things. You figure out where your kids are going to go to school permanently, or things start settling in and you realize what it's going to be like to operate separately than together. Things are going to change. And that's why it's important that you're not making commitments or promises or anything like that from the beginning. And it takes time to evolve into it. And so, but another important thing is communication. You want an open line of communication with your attorney. And, they should be, in my opinion, should be giving you their cell phone number. It should be somebody that explains to you, hey, if I'm not available, here's who you talk to.
Right.
Who is going to explain and you're going to feel prepared going into a court hearing, into a deposition. into a mediation.
Yeah, because that's scary.
And it is.
It's very scary, because I've done it, and it's not easy.
It is.
So it sounds like what I'm hearing from you is you prepare your clients by helping them to understand the process, and you educate them.
Yes.
And I've learned too, the more you educate someone and they understand what they're doing, it takes some of that, not all of it, but it takes a lot of stress off. Because when you don't know, that's what the scary thing is. I don't know what's going to happen to me.
But here's the thing. A lot of times we as lawyers still don't know. And we don't know what the outcome could be. But, for example, in mediation, we, no matter how much we tell our clients to, and I know people that are stressed don't like when somebody tells them relax or it's going to be okay or whatever. But in a mediation, we tell our clients,
can we laugh for a moment on that one? Because no, it's true. It's true. That's funny. Sorry, continue.
It's
but
like,
I find that funny
telling the leopard, don't have your spots on today.
It's but there's a lot of things that usually if you're, listen, emotions are going to be high, and it's easy for us who have guided people through this hundreds and thousands of times just to tell somebody to relax. But in reality, that's the most important thing and probably one of the biggest things that you'll go through in your life. And emotions are high, and especially if you haven't been through it before, and even if you have, you're still stressed, you're still nervous. And the key is to be with somebody that you're going to feel as comfortable as possible with. And that's what I tell all my clients.
When you say calm down, even if they can't, just hearing the person you trust tell you it's going to be okay does help. It does help. You're still stressed, but you're like, okay, he's not nervous. He's
a lot of times too,
cool.
it's like when you educate the person that it's an uncomfortable time. This is a stressful point in life.
Oh, it is.
You're going through an extremely hard time, but then I always find it's to paint the picture, because sometimes with the mortgage process it can be very straightforward. You got a very easy loan, and sometimes you got there's 7 or 8 different variables where curveballs come in from underwriting, and just say, listen, it's normal to want to. Sometimes I tell my clients it's normal to want to punch me in the nose once or twice during the process, But it's like, just trust me. Do not ask me why I need something. Do not ask me here. It's like, I am fighting for you. They got an underwriter's like the judge. I'm like your attorney. So you got to kind of understand this relationship. So just keep moving with us and flowing. And that feeling that you have, it's frustrating because the last thing you want to do is use logic in the mortgage business because it's just crazy with how
underwriters come back with all kinds of crazy stuff.
You're missing page 77 of 84 of your asset statement. Sorry, reschedule your mover.
No, it's frustrating, very frustrating. And I have had a lot of clients actually, though, change loan officers midway or even towards the end of the process before a closing date, and then tried to get an extension, because what I find and I think we've talked about this before on prior shows, but a lot of, at least in what I've seen, is loan officers will pre-approve people too easily, too quickly, make them believe they're going to get approved, or guarantee them some sort of minimal down payment, some sort of minimal down payment, or at least they promise them this, that, whatever, and then the reality comes out, oh shit, they're going to have to dish out so much more money, they might need more time, they're not getting approved in time, and then they end up having to switch to somebody that's going to be more realistic and honest, and ends up getting, usually, hopefully, a seller and seller's agent to agree to an extension to be able to get it done in time. But
or they pass the buck.
I do see that a lot.
My favorite, which you guys never do, is when they say, well, you just have to tell your agent, they just have to get concessions for you and you'll be fine. And it's like, oh, okay, in a world where no one's getting concessions, that's all we have to do? Well, now it's, but it's like, that's the type of thing that what you're saying, and what we're all kind of talking about is a professionalism. Like, look at the current condition, what makes sense. Yes, anything's possible, but if you have 1% chance of getting it done and all these things have to line up perfectly, that's really not setting someone up with realistic expectations to go talk to their next professional. So like with you guys, if I'm sitting down with you and I'm getting divorced again, what are we gonna do? Get me a house. And then you're like, okay.
Are you that excited?
Yeah. Well, I was excited because I was excited at the option of not being homeless, and I was turned down. I was turned down the first time. They were like, oh, we can't help you. And I won't say names, but Ken didn't say that. And I mean, honestly, I don't remember all of our conversation because I was in that divorce.
I knew we had to do some work, but it was something because it was out of your control, but I knew that we had to navigate it. But
so it looks like.
So what do you do when someone comes to you and they're like, help me?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think we're scheduling towards the end, and I think it's important to recognize finding that point of when to look for your new professional. But one more time, ask your question to me.
So if I'm sitting with you and I'm saying, I'm getting divorced,
Okay.
and I'm interviewing loan officers, what maybe should I ask you, or what are you going to impart to me? What would people need to know? What's a good loan officer? A good loan
Somebody
officer
that's
look
not going to paint the picture of all roses. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a lot of times it's like, I tell you, my job is to figure out why your loan's not going to get done.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's not going to get done, it's not going to get done.
End.
Yeah. So it's like, that's just realize that job. Because a lot of times it's like people come to me and I have to draw the analogy. It's like, I'm your attorney, the underwriter's a judge. I work 100% commission, only get paid if your loan closes.
Exactly.
So understanding that relationship, please understand that when I ask questions, sometimes people get defensive or in a situation, I'm like, unplug from that and just let me represent you and push forward from there. My job is to figure out why your loan's not going to get done, because if the underwriter will find it, I mean, in 99% chance, that's their job. That's all they do. They sit behind a desk. So it's.
But it seems like a good loan officer annoys the client a little bit, because I've always had love-hate relationships with loan officers in the past.
Yeah.
But when they get it done is when you appreciate it. But in the meantime, when they're asking you for this, that, and whatever, you go nuts. But it's really so they're prepared with
But
the
you
underwriter.
have to understand.
It's necessary.
Yeah.
Well, you're being humble, because the truth is, what I wanted to hear from you, but you're too humble to say it, is when you sit down with people, you listen to them, you make a plan based on their specific, and I know Cece does the same thing, specific situation. It's not a one size fits all. You don't put people into a box. You sit there and listen to them, and you find what's going to be the option that works best. And sometimes, once in a very blue moon, you'll say, you know what, you need like a specific type of product we don't offer, but here's where you need to look into that.
But also just
Because
understand
that's best for them.
To not only just articulate what's best for them, but help them understand, especially them, because that's the most important thing moving forward and finding the right house. You just want to feel well served and educated.
Right.
And when you can do that and not just say, oh, this is what we're doing, but this is why we're doing that, so they understand it. Because then they go home and everybody else is giving the 2 cents. Well, look at this mortgage, look at this mortgage. I tell them, just block that out. Feel comfortable with, and not block all of it out per se, but I mean, if you feel comfortable, block that out, just because I'm going to lead you and you're going to understand
Focus
why.
on the professional.
Yeah. So it sounds like you need to choose somebody that you believe is honest, transparent, communicates effectively,
And educates you.
and that you feel comfortable with. And I think all of that needs to happen in order for the relationship to last and to get you through the finish line. And I know we didn't touch much on how to choose a realtor, Holly, but other than we talked about communication, that type of stuff. But I also have had a lot of people who, well, the biggest problem is while going through a divorce, people can't necessarily agree on a realtor, because why does my husband or my wife or my spouse want to choose this person? There must be a reason why I'm not going to agree. So ultimately, in most of our cases, the mediator ends up becoming the arbitrator for that purpose and choosing the realtor. And in that case, they have no choice. They have to follow with whoever the mediator chooses ultimately.
To show being neutral.
Yes.
That neutral party versus one person bringing their favorite. And they think like, let me just throw this out there, appraisals.
Yeah.
I'm working with a client right now, and the significant other wanted their own appraisal. I'm like, well, you can go off and do that and spend your money, but when it comes to the mortgage aspect, we have no control of who actually does the appraisal. It is completely biased. It has nothing to do with us. I am not.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
Unbiased.
Unbiased. Oh my gosh, unbiased. Thank you. But yes. Thank you for my ADD picking up what I'm saying. So, but having us have that neutral, a lot of parties don't understand an appraisal is neutral. So talking
for those purposes and
for
a
those
mortgage.
purposes, but for a real estate agent, I can see where one may think the other one will have if they use Holly.
Well, that's my job. My number one job when I sit down with those two people is to let them know. And if, let's say, the wife knew me, then I will usually spend more of my time trying to focus on the husband, not focus, but really let him know that I see him
Make
and I
him feel
hear him.
comfortable.
If it's the husband, then I know I will almost ignore him and really focus on the wife to let her know, listen, just so you know, I'm impartial. I work for both of you. I can't do one thing that's better for one or the other. I'm here to do what's best for you because that's, I want you to refer me. I want to get, a raving fan out of you. So that's one of my biggest tasks is to sit down with both people and say, listen, I'm here for both of you, and here's the deal. I'm your buffer. Use me. You guys don't have to talk to each other. You can talk to me, she can talk to me, and I'm in the go-between.
I've actually, in a lot of my divorce cases, where our clients are having to go through their attorneys, paying a lot of money an hour, then end up, we don't hear from them in a while, like, hey, are you guys okay? Which is good. We're happy because they don't need to be spending money for every single communication for us to facilitate between their spouse or ex or soon-to-be ex. But what I find is a lot of times when there's silence for a little while, it turns out that they're communicating through the realtor. And I mean, I feel bad for the realtor because you're not getting paid extra to do it, but it kind of feels like they both end up being happy and satisfied with the result of the service the realtor provides. Because even though in one of my quick examples is I was representing the guy in a divorce and him and his wife couldn't communicate on anything at all, absolutely nothing, whether it's regarding their kids or not, whatever. The realtor gets involved, who I believe his wife had actually chose the realtor. And at that point he had said, fine, whatever. And he ended up really liking the realtor, respect the realtor, commended the realtor because the realtor was there to help facilitate everything between the two of them. So,
And that's why when people say, oh, you guys get paid a lot. Well, especially in a divorce situation, we're not
enough,
just selling
right?
a house.
Yeah.
That's why my tagline is it's more than a move. It's so much more. It's
You're right.
really
I've had a couple times where
bringing everybody together, solidifying the situation.
where the client, and I'm sorry to interrupt
No,
you,
you're good.
the client, like it's in front of me and like, it's like, you're talking about bridging the miscommunication gap. I'm like, listen, just go here. You know, it might be a little tense situation, but just send them a text and say, what about this? And we both get this. And I'm like, I'll sometimes write the actual text on there
Yes.
and send it to
Find
them.
the
And I said, take
win-win.
this to your attorneys because I'm not an attorney. I don't want to assume that I'm not giving you advice, but I'm like, if it's okay, then we work this in the judgment of divorce. You guys both can get what you want. So it is.
Quick question, because I know we're wrapping up
we have
soon.
to wrap up soon.
And I wanted to get to this, and we just had such great conversation. But let's say I come to you, Jeff, and I'm like, listen, I hate my attorney. They're terrible. And let's say you actually do agree with me that maybe I'm kind of getting screwed over. Can I get out of that, or am I stuck?
Yeah, no, you can always change lawyers. Now, the only time that you might not be able to is if there's a trial date that's a hard date that's already been adjourned out really far, and the judge either may not let you change lawyers, or it may not be in your best interest to do so, or it may be really hard to find a new lawyer to come in that close. Now, there have been situations where we've come in very close to the trial date. We've asked the judge to be able to push the trial date out. Sometimes they've agreed, sometimes they haven't. Sometimes we've gone back to a mediation, even though they've been a few times before and have been able to resolve it. Because a lot of times, in most divorce cases, it doesn't make sense to go to trial. And we'll talk about that another time. There's a whole bunch of reasons why. I mean, listen, we're trial lawyers and we love trying cases, but in divorce cases, it usually makes more sense to reach a resolution for many reasons, which we'll talk about a whole other time.
So I just basically say, dude, you're fired. I'm hiring
Well,
Jeff.
usually you don't even have to say that. Your new
Or will you do
lawyer,
it for
your
me? Will you
new
break up for me?
lawyer would handle that for you.
Good.
They would send a substitution of counsel
Nice.
proposed order to your former or your current attorney at the time, and request
make
a
it
copy
easy.
of the file.
So you do a Dear John letter to
I
them.
love it.
No.
I mean,
essentially.
we basically send them the proposed order, and sometimes they might give a little bit of a hard time on the file depending on fees and that type of stuff.
Right.
So,
They want to be paid, obviously.
but
That's
I
all
mean,
they are.
technically they can't withhold a copy of the file from the new attorney. So
Oh,
we end
so
up
they
working
have to
it
give
out.
you documents
We
within a
need
certain
a copy.
period of
We
time.
need a
For
copy of the
discovery?
file. No, just
Okay.
a copy of the file.
a file?
So we can get caught
Okay.
up on stuff. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not the end of the world.
No, you could totally change
Okay.
lawyers most of the time. I'm not going to say all the time, but most of the time, and judges understand it, and if people, and it's no offense to the current attorney or the former attorney at all. They just might not have clicked well. It might be a communication issue. It might be something to where they didn't see eye to eye on things.
Or they're too busy. They don't have enough help.
Or anything. It could be anything at all, But no, it happens. So
Okay.
anyway, well, we as we discovered today, we have a lot more stuff to talk about in
do. We
future
covered
shows,
a lot of ground
and
now.
hope everybody
Professionalism.
A few minutes longer than we wanted, but
Communication.
Yeah.
just
Let's
don't
wrap
talk.
it up.
Education.
everybody have a good week, and we'll see you again next week.
Yes. Have a good week.